Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry, and today we're going to be starting another classic game book adventure, in this case the Cretan Chronicles, a trilogy of books, so relatively short, starting with the Bloodfeud of Altheus. This is a single adventure set in ancient Greece, from the time of legend, and if the story feels familiar, it should. Initially it starts out more open, but then it begins to take a much more familiar shape and becomes more of a memory test in a way, because in many game books, the temptation is to be placed in a similar situation to the hero from a story you've heard many years ago and think, I would do something better in that situation. I could do something different. What could I do better? In this case, it's more remembering what the hero did, and that'll be pretty successful, and the other options might not be. Now, like The Way of the Tiger and Bloodsword, this, and unlike the Golden Dragon game books, this game book does come with a whole set of rules, so we'll be going through that at the beginning of book 1. We won't be going through it again for book 2 or 3. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. It's been a very long time since I played these last, possibly even the previous century, okay? I think I might have played the physical copies. I know I played the physical copy of book 1 back in the very early 90s. Might have played book 2 and 3 around the same time. Yeah, I'm not sure I've actually played them at all for PDFs, which I grabbed for reference sake and for nostalgia's sake when I discovered them on the internet many years ago. Okay, here we go. Theseus is dead, replied Hermes. His body lies yet at the heart of the labyrinth of Minos. The spirits of your ancestors cry out from the halls of Hades, lusting for retribution. Aegeus, your noble father, mourns the loss of his strong-armed son. His spirit, fired with soul-searing anger, urges him on to revenge, but his feeble frame cannot undertake the task. It is you, amicable Altheus, who must journey far across the wine-dark sea and destroy the scourge that threatens the city of your birth. So it was that Hermes spoke, and in a wisp of smoke he vanished before you. In this book, you are Altheus, a Greek hero on an awesome mission to accomplish. A Greek hero with an awesome mission to accomplish, striving against wild beasts and men and seeking to win the favour of the gods in your quest. The journey will be difficult, but it is you who will determine your destiny. The book is laid out in paragraph format. At the end of each paragraph, you will be given directions which will determine the number of the paragraph to which you next turn. The paragraphs are set out in numerical order. You should not read a paragraph until you have been sent to it from the one you have just read, or you will spoil the continuity and enjoyability of the adventure. If there is no destination given for you at the end of a paragraph, you are dead. In any case, you may start again at the beginning, at paragraph 1, with a new Altheus, all values at their initial value, all weapons and equipment as at the start, and all the gods' attitudes at neutral. You will need pencil, paper, and dice to appreciate the travels of Altheus, your travels. And I'm gonna Just skip ahead. Okay. Might take us a little while to set up a character sheet. Might, protection, honor, and shame. I'll get this more organized as we continue. Before you set out, there are a number of things it is necessary for you to know. Your mental state, your fighting skills, and your relations with the supernatural and society are described in terms of 4 characteristics. These are might, protection, honor, and shame. Their values will change during the course of the game, so they must be recorded. For this purpose, a blank chronicle sheet is provided, which may be photocopied. Also, marked on the chronicle sheet is a wound record track. This begins at healthy, and as Altheus suffers injuries, it moves through wounded and seriously wounded to dead. Whenever Altheus or an opponent is hit, the wound record of that person is moved on 1 level from its previous value. Healthy or unwounded to wounded, wounded to seriously wounded to dead. Death will, in most cases, be fatal, so take care. The chronicle sheet can also be used to record equipment carried, artifacts required on the journey, and whether Altheus is in favour or disfavour with the gods. In short, it details everything important about Altheus's condition and his relations with the outside world. Altheus's might value at a given time will nearly always be made up of a combination of his natural ability and the value of the strongest weapon he is carrying. This characteristic is used to determine how likely Altheus is to hit an opponent. Should he find himself in combat, Altheus's natural might is 4, but this will be supplemented whenever he is carrying a weapon. I'm going to do this like AD&D 3rd edition or onwards, where you put the total first, then in brackets the numbers adding up to it. Protection is made up of a combination of Altheus's inborn skill at dodging and the sum total of the armour he happens to be wearing. Altheus has inborn protection of 10. Now suppose that he has greaves and a helmet. The greaves give 1 point of protection and the helmet 2. His natural protection value, in this case, is 13. 10 plus 2 plus 1. Protection is used mainly in combat to determine how difficult an opponent will find it to strike at Altheus successfully. Honour is all important for Altheus. It determines his relations both with his fellow men and with his patron god or goddess. Without honour he will find himself an outcast. His patron deity will refuse to aid him when called on. Not that this aid is in any case automatic. Men will despise him and seek to do him ill. Altheus starts with an honour of 7. This may increase or decrease without restriction, but it may never decrease below 0. If it ever reaches 0, it may not increase again except through appeals to Zeus, or by means of a special item described in the text. Honour is gained by victory in combat. It may be used up in appeals to the gods. Honour may also be used to gain a temporary increase in might or protection in combat. It starts at 7. I think generally we want to avoid using honour in combat, because I can't remember for the life of me how many honour points we get over the course of the series. In tough fights we'll probably have to, because in theory if you gain honour for victory in combat, that will make up for any honour you may have spent. In theory. Shame is another crucial concept in Bronze Age Greece, the setting of this adventure. Shame, which initially has a value of 0, cannot be eradicated once acquired except under exceptional circumstances, which will be detailed in the text. It is accumulated by such cultural faux pas as slaying one's opponent after he has surrendered, retreating ignominiously from a fair fight, or failing to perform heroic deeds, or, in the case of Oedipus, murdering your father and marrying your mother, and finding out later on. Such gross crimes as patricide, marrying one's own mother, or failure satisfactorily to maintain one's armour will be penalised by a greater increase in shame points. If Altheus' shame ever rises above his honour, he will be overwhelmed by the burden of his heroic conscience, and he will either disembowel himself with a short sword if he has one available, like a Japanese samurai, or be struck down by a thunderbolt from Olympian Zeus, father of the gods, and his spirit will go whining through the dark halls of Hades, the life-destroyer. Resurrection is, in this case, specifically forbidden. If shame exceeds honour in the middle of a combat, no action is taken until the battle is completed. Thus the honour he gains from victory may save him from this horrible fate. Combat may occur in any encounter with a person or animal who is given combat abilities. You should always note these down on a piece of paper, not only for convenience, but also because you may well be sent to another paragraph. You should also keep track of the wound record of an opponent. Combat is fought in a series of rounds called thrusts and counterthrusts. Unless otherwise specified, Altheus will have the option of the first strike. If he performs some other action, such as appealing to the gods or using a magical item, his opponent will gain this initiative. Altheus rolls 2 dice and adds his natural might and the value of his chosen weapon. Note that if a weapon is given no protection value, or a piece of armour no might value, this is because the relevant attribute is 0. Because weapons add to might, they don't necessarily add to protection, and armour adds protection doesn't necessarily improve might. If this total equals or exceeds the total protection, natural ability plus armour, of the opponent, Altheus has scored a hit. The wound record of the opponent is moved forward 1 stage. If healthy, the opponent becomes wounded. If wounded, seriously wounded. And if seriously wounded, dead. So, full health, chonk, 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 dead, right? Hit you, you're wounded. So that's 3 hits and you're out, essentially. At which point the combat is over. On a dice roll of 11 or 12, Altheus will automatically hit his opponent regardless of his might or his opponent's protection. Altheus may get lucky, even against the most formidable adversary. Conversely, on a 2 or 3, he will automatically miss. His opponents fight in exactly the same manner, except that non-human opponents have no separate weapons or armour to be taken into consideration. If Altheus is fighting more than one opponent, the procedure is very slightly different. Altheus will fight them one by one, but each one's might is increased by 1 for each surviving companion. For example, if Altheus fights 3 wolves, with a might of 2 and protection of 12, the first wolf is effectively might 4, the second might 3, and the last its own 2. So obviously the additional might is to take into account the fact that they are all fighting him at once. So it's a lot more dangerous. In such multiple combats, an opponent drops out when seriously wounded and leaves the fight to his unwounded companions. So only 2 hits required to knock out foes in a group combat. If all are seriously wounded, the text will give instructions as to what to do. This feels more like maybe a group wrestling match or something, interestingly enough. The fight continues until one side is dead or has surrendered. Once either Altheus or his opponent is seriously wounded, however, the injury will hamper fighting ability. Anyone suffering from such a wound will roll 1 die instead, or 2 during combat. Oh. So I feel this applies to everyone, not just to group combats. In this situation, a roll of 1 is an automatic miss, but a roll of 6 is not an automatic hit. If all participants in a combat are seriously wounded, then, in this case only, they are allowed to roll 2 dice instead of 1 until the end of the combat. So, if one combatant is seriously wounded and can inflict a serious wound on the opponent, then they essentially go back up to 2 dice again. Once a protagonist is seriously wounded, therefore, his chances of survival are very much less. Once against a human opponent in this situation, Altheus has the option of surrendering. The opponent will almost always accept this. The text will tell you whether or not he does. Strip him of his strongest piece of armor and his strongest weapon, calculated according to their might or protection, the best has the highest value, and then let him go. Altheus must, however, take 1 shame point for such an action. If an opponent surrenders, Altheus must accept, or take 2 shame points. He may then strip the opponent of any armor or weapon he wishes, bearing in mind that he may not wear more than 1 of any type of armor, a helmet for example, although he may carry a spare. Again, the text will tell you whether or not a given opponent will surrender, and this is why human opponents will have equipment listed and built into their stat block instead of just having total might and protection values as creatures will. If Altheus is healthy or wounded but not seriously, he may attempt to retreat. Any attempt will cost 1 honor point, regardless of its outcome. A retreat is successful on a roll of 1 to 4 and fails on a 5 or 6, unless specified in the text. A successful attempt will impose 1 point of shame. And because shame cannot be decreased and rises up against honor, losing a point of honor, you're essentially double dipping and gaining 2 points of shame. Well, you're not, but you're doubling the difference because you can regain honor and send you to the paragraph specified. Unsuccessful attempts rule out retreat for the remainder of the combat. The fight must continue until death or surrender. Death honor, as already mentioned, plays an important part in combat. Altheus may, if it is his strike, use honor points temporarily to increase his might. For example, if his honor is 11 and his might 9, natural ability plus axe, that's an impressive axe, he may increase his might to 11 for 1 roll only by increasing his honor to 9. After the roll, the might reverts to its former value and the honor points are lost forever. So it's not 1 honor point to use honor in combat, it's the difference between honor and might. Or it's just 2. I think it's the difference. Similarly, when it is his opponent's strike, Altheus may increase his protection for 1 roll only by a corresponding reduction in honor. He may do this as often as he likes, as long as he does not run out of honor. If Altheus is victorious in combat, he will receive honor points. The text will specify how many points Altheus should receive as a result of a given combat. In addition, his wound record should be set back to healthy at the end of any combat he survives. Okay, so we get a total health bonus. Total heal after any fight. Got it. That's impressive. Example of combat. Let's read through this because it'll probably help. Altheus, with a spear, might 3 protection 1, because you can kind of fend people off and keep them at spear's length, and a helmet, protection 4. His honour at 10 and shame at 0 meets a lion, might 5, protection 15. Altheus's combat values are might 7 and protection 15. Altheus decides to take no non-combat action such as praying to the gods, and so strikes first. He needs an 8 to hit, because his might of 7, plus a die roll of 8, is equal to the lion's protection of 15. He rolls a 6 and misses. The lion needs a 10 to hit. He rolls 11, so Altheus is wounded. Altheus attacks again. This time he rolls a 9, which hits. The lion is wounded. The lion again needs 10 to hit. He rolls 10, so Altheus is now seriously wounded and only rolls 1 die in combat. Altheus now needs 8 to hit, but this is impossible on 1 die. He therefore decides to use some honour points. He transfers, so he has a honour of 10. He transfers 3 points to his might, which is now at a temporary level of 10. Yeah, so it's bringing might up to the current honour level by paying the corresponding difference. He now needs a 5 to hit. He rolls a 6. The lion is now seriously wounded. It has no honour and so cannot hit. Except we're both seriously wounded, so we go back up to 2 dice, right? And so cannot hit Altheus any longer. Altheus kills it the next round by using some more honour, and he receives 6 points of honour for slaying the lion. His wound record is returned to healthy, but if all participants in a combat are seriously wounded, then, in this case only, they are allowed to roll 2 dice instead of 1 until the end of the combat. Which seems to have been ignored here. Later in this adventure, Altheus meets 2 Cretans, both might 7 protection 14. They carry clubs and shields. Altheus's values are before, might 7 protection 15. He has acquired 1 shame point, but his honour is now 12. The effective might of the first Cretan is 8, because of his companion. Got it. Altheus decides the odds against him are too great. Deciding the odds against him are too great, tries to retreat. He rolls a 5 and fails, but still loses 1 point of honour. The first Cretan now strikes, as Altheus has lost the initiative by attempting to retreat. He needs 7 to hit, but rolls 3, which is in any case an automatic miss. Altheus rolls 9, which hits, as 9 plus his might of 7 is greater than 14, the Cretan's protection. The Cretan is wounded. The Cretan rolls a 5 and misses. I think the Cretan's using map tools dice. Altheus rolls and hits again. The Cretan is now seriously wounded and drops out, leaving his companion to fight on. As he is not supported, he fights at might 7 and protection 14. He attacks Altheus, needing an 8 or more to hit. He rolls 11, wounding Altheus. Altheus rolls a 5, missing the Cretan. He needs 7 to hit. The Cretan rolls 3 and automatically misses. Altheus would like to retreat now, but cannot, as he failed earlier on. Instead, he uses 5 points of honour to bring his might up to 12. He's gained a point of... so. Did he have 12 honour? He had 10. Spent 3 down to 7. How does he use more honour to hit this next round? So say he goes up to 13. Must have spent at least 1. So, but he's spent it once. It seems like you only get to spend honour once in combat, because then that reduces it to your natural value and you can't then increase it again. He needs 2 or more to hit. He rolls 2, but this is an automatic miss. 2 of his honour points are wasted as a roll of 2 or 3 misses no matter what. His honour is now 6 and his might back at 7. So he uses 5 honour points to come from 12 down to 7. This would imply we get to keep the other 4 points, but no, because we've come all the way down to... So if he was on 12... So the 3 he spends here... We ignore the instruction about spending more next round, because that would drop him down to 7, 13. He then spends 5... But he should have spent 6 to go up to 13. So maybe we can just spend points, right? Up to and down to His honour is now at 6, his might back at 7. The Cretan rolls 4 and again misses. Altheus rolls 12, an automatic hit. The Cretan is now wounded. The Cretan rolls 10, added to his might of 7. This makes 17 greater than which is greater than Altheus's protection, so he hits Altheus, who is now seriously wounded. In desperation, Altheus uses 5 points of honour to increase his might to 12. So it seems it's not just about the difference. We can just spend points on a 1-for-1 basis. So he needs to roll a 2 on 1 die, only 1 as he is seriously wounded, to hit. He rolls 4 and hits. Both Cretans are now seriously wounded. At this point, Altheus rejoices, thinking that both Cretans will surrender. By turning to the appropriate paragraph, however, he finds that they are fanatical defenders of the labyrinth of Minos and will never surrender. As neither side can score a hit, the Cretans are only using 1 die, and Altheus feels he cannot use any honour, as he would fall below his shame, and if he failed to hit, he would die. Both sides are permitted to roll 2 dice instead of 1. Even if Altheus wins this combat, his low honour will cause problems. Perhaps he will pray to Zeus. The gods are a crucial part of Altheus's life. At the start of the adventure, he must dedicate himself to one of Ares, Athena, Poseidon, Apollo, Aphrodite, or Hera, and he must try to avoid angering any of the others. Presiding enigmatic over all of them is Zeus, father of the gods, who will aid Altheus once in the adventure. Beneath this pantheon are many lesser gods, goddesses, and spirits whose anger is still to be avoided. In the case of a patron deity, who will be chosen later in the course of the adventure, Altheus's standing is determined by his honour. At certain points in the text, Altheus will be offered help by a deity. If it is his patron, he may expend the requisite amount of honour, sometimes a random number, and accept the favour. If Altheus does not have enough honour, he will be referred back to the paragraph where the choice was offered, but will nonetheless lose 1 point of honour. Once at 0, honour cannot be regained except by praying to Zeus or by use of certain artifacts. In the case of deities who are not his patron, Altheus is either in favour, at neutral, or in disfavour. Initially, he will be at neutral with all the gods except his patron, but this may change over the course of the adventure, as he performs actions which appease or anger the gods. Let's just make a note of the list. There we go. And place ourselves at neutral in regard to each one. Altheus may praise Zeus once during each adventure. This will have one of a number of effects at Altheus' choice. If he has been killed by any other means than shame overtaking honour, he may be resurrected with all equipment, shame of 0 and honour of 1, at the paragraph indicated in the text. When Zeus saves you in this manner, do not be surprised if you find yourself moved to a nearby point in the same town or vicinity. This is simply divine Zeus's way of ensuring your safety, so you don't just get killed again by the thing that just killed you. He may simply gain 1 to 6 honour points. Roll 1 die. If his honour is 0, he may have it set back to 1 and regain the ability to acquire honour. He may have the attitude of all the gods set back to neutral regardless of what they were. Probably the best use of praying to Zeus, to be honest. Remember that the intervention of Olympian Zeus is very rare indeed, and may never be used more than once in an adventure, unless it is specifically offered in the text. Equipment. Although you are a hero, you will start off lightly equipped with only a club, might 1 and protection 0, and no armour. Well, we're going to note that down. During the course of the adventure, you will acquire other pieces of equipment. You should note these on your chronicle sheet. You may only carry 1 spare set of armour, in addition to any you may be wearing, and this will give you no extra protection, but there is no limit to the amount of small items you may carry. This rule does not forbid the wearing of a breastplate, and greaves and a helmet, etc., merely the wearing of 2 of any particular type of armour. At times during the adventure you may wish to perform non-standard actions. These will not be offered in the text, as this would give you a degree of foreknowledge granted only to the prescient. Instead, if you are at a paragraph with a number in italic type, i.e. 476 in italics rather than 476 in normal type, you may run the risk of adding 20 to the paragraph number and turning to that number. This process is known for convenience as taking a hint. If there is no non-standard action at that point which a Bronze Age hero would have thought of, you will pay the penalty in either honour or shame, or both, for trying to be ahead of your time. Note that this option will never be explicitly offered in the text. You must remember it and use it when you see fit. You are about to set off. If you have not already done so, record your initial values, Might 4, Protection 10, Honour 7 and Shame 0, and your equipment, a club with Might of 1 and Protection 0, on your chronicle sheet. Then turn to paragraph 1, and good luck. Now, the ascribing of a particular patron deity to a hero is a very Greek mythology thing. In fact, it barely features in other cultures at all, which therefore is interesting that the oldest of role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, with a very open attitude towards pantheons and pantheistic cultures, a world where multiple faiths could exist at the same time, quite early on began to force clerics to have a patron deity, which they would worship very monotheistically, despite the fact that that deity would often be part of a pantheon with relations to all the other gods in the pantheon, and it would only make sense to pray to the other gods at various times. For instance, Hades when performing funerals, for example. Or to Hades or Persephone for a good harvest, for instance. And we will indeed need to have a Mother's Gem. We'll add that down. We will need to worship a single god and do everything for them. So we have two character sheets here. We have one blank and one that is already filled in. Not sure where the shield and breastplate come from, or the sword. We have a Mother's Gem here. Patron Apollo, Favour, Dionysus, Aphrodite, and Hera. Is Dionysus... Dionysus was not on the list. So we'll soon see about that. And a beautiful map of ancient Greece. Trembling with terror at the tale of Hermes, you rush out of your cottage and into the fields. You search for your mother, Aethra, and find her huddled under a spruce tree tending the goats. In haste you blurt the words of the god. "My son," replies your mother, "the words of the god fill me with sorrow, but they are true. For the gods never lie." Except for Hermes, who lies quite a lot when he's not delivering messages. Or Ares, who lies quite a lot when he says he won wars. You must follow the orders of the winged messenger. Travel to violet-crowned Athens and seek for your father Aegeus. Take with you my jewel, for it was once your father's, and he will surely recognize it. But first, visit Parses, high priest of Troezen, and take what advice he can give you. Good luck, my son. Prove worthy of your noble father and your dead brother. Having spoken, she turns away lest you catch sight of her tears. You linger a moment then, with the jewel clasped firmly in your hand. You rush away down the hillside into the town. It is dawn, and the rosy-fingered Eos... No, it is Eos. Eos would be Anglo-Saxon. Yeah. Rosy-fingered Eos has only just tinged the horizon with red. The streets of Troezen are empty, save for a handful of scurrying slaves already about their master's business, and you come quickly to the temple. The high priest greets you. He already knows of your errand. "Altheus, before you lies a great journey to lands of which you have never even dreamt. Many dangers await you. Without the aid of a god you cannot prevail. Choose now a patron god or goddess to guide and help you. Great-eyed Athena offers you the gift of wisdom. Ares, god of war, offers strength. If beauty tempts you, think of Aphrodite. Apollo, the archer-god, controls the gift of prophecy, while Hera, queen of the gods, has influence over Zeus. Your travels are sure to take you across seas and oceans, and these are Poseidon's province. Choose now one of these 6 to aid you, and pay them homage. Good luck, Altheus, son of Aegeus. We can choose Aphrodite, Ares, Poseidon, Athena, Hera, or Apollo. Now, for the most part, the gods here are represented in the adventure in a similar manner to their personality and the kind of actions they would carry out and portray in Greek mythology. However, Ares is not portrayed as Ares. He's portrayed rather more like the Roman Mars, who is just a copycat pretending to be Ares. Because, as we all know, the Roman gods are all just the Greek gods with different names, and some slight differences. The main difference here is that Mars always wins wars and always wins battles because the Romans have such a fragile ego they couldn't afford to allow him to lose. Whereas Ares always loses wars and loses battles. He goes out and starts them and loses them and comes home and whines and cries while he heals up afterwards. He also is having an affair with Aphrodite, the wife of Hephaestus, the smith god, who the Romans called Vulcan for some reason. And then we get the word volcano from that. So, Aphrodite is beautiful but fickle. Let's be honest, she comes across as a bit of a self-absorbed, narcissistic bimbo and doesn't always give the best advice in this series. Ares is like, take the sword, slay the beast, roar, fight, I'll give you a bonus in combat, and, pushes you to battle and win, giving you big bonuses to get through combat. What the fuck? Oh, fuck off. Don't need that now. I'll look into it later, Well, that's kind of disrupted my flow. Now, Poseidon. Odysseus famously angered Poseidon and spent 10 years trying to get home. However, Theseus and I think one other hero had Poseidon as their patron. So you'd think Poseidon would be quite a wise choice in this story if we are to ape Theseus's legendary success. All the best heroes had Athena as their patron. Jason, I think possibly Heracles as well. You'd think Heracles would have Hera as a patron, but no. She was constantly working against him, trying to strike him down. Athena gives good tactical advice. She is the goddess of knowledge and war. Now, Ares is the god of war, of fighting with great passion and getting badly hurt. Athena is the goddess of tactics and military strategy, and knowing how to win a war or battle. Hera is insanely jealous and power-hungry, and Zeus wisely keeps her in check, but she can be incredibly vindictive. It might not be good to turn to her for advice on a regular basis. Apollo also has his jealous side. Apollo is the god of the sun, as is Phaeton. And he uses poisonous arrows. Artemis, the goddess of the moon, also uses poisonous arrows. Her arrows put the target to sleep, so they die in their sleep. Whereas Apollo's arrows make them die writhing in horrible agony and make them really suffer. Both Artemis and Apollo are incredibly vindictive when it comes to use of their arrows. I think it was Apollo who created the scorpion that killed Orion, for example. So if we want to take the advice of the best, well, the aid of the gods will mostly be advice. So we'll go with Athena. In the temple at Troezen, you bow down at the statue of Athena and pray. The room grows quiet and peaceful. Then, in a shimmering haze, the statue stirs into life. Altheus, son of Aegeus, you have chosen wisely, and wisely shall I aid you in your quest. In return, I couldn't remember if it was Athena or Aphrodite who had an annoying lisp in this series. Right. Altheus, son of Aegeus, you have chosen wisely, and wisely I shall aid you in your quest. In return, I ask for you one favour. Go to Crete and recover your brother's body, that it may be buried in Athens with fitting rites. Good luck. Athena is goddess of defensive war, so you may add 1 to your protection value. In addition, you may need pay no honour when instructed to do so, if you take a look 20 numbers on and there is no hint. If the penalty is in shame, you must still take it. Okay. That is pretty potent. Each of the other gods, I believe, offers a similar mechanical benefit, with their own distinct flavour. And it's the benefits that Ares give that make him feel more like Mars. The statue falls silent and will speak no more. You set out for Athens, where your father is king. Ooh, a little too far there. The road is hard and you are soon tired. As you struggle up a rocky mountain path, a man and a woman ride past on a horse, deep in conversation. As they gallop on, the dust makes you splutter, but they are out of sight before you can react. Eventually you reach the top of a hill and, for the first time in your life, can look down into the valley beyond. It is fertile and inviting. You can see high-walled Tyrins in the distance, and, a little nearer and to the east, Epidaurus, sacred to Asclepius the healer. You drink deeply from the wineskin and press on down the hillside. The path forks. We can go left or right. Blind choice. Not entirely sure where we began. Let's have a quick look at the map. Not seeing these locations on the map, which is fine. There's Tyrans. There's Troezen. Okay, Epidaurus. And we are heading towards Athens, right? So right would be closer. But Fighting Fantasy rule was pretty strong in my life when I played this the first time. So we shall go left. as I believe I was successful on my first playthrough, although there was a hard fight near the beginning. I believe this to be Ares, quite possibly. Yes. The journey to Tyrans is uneventful, and the path clear of all travellers. You arrive at the high-walled city by nightfall. Will you look around, or look for somewhere appropriate to stay the night? Let's look around. Now, I distinctly remember that the first fight in this adventure is with a murderous innkeeper who attempts to slay us with an axe in the night while we sleep. And early on, it's quite a seemingly random and unfamiliar adventure, but as we progress towards, it's either the second half of the first book or second half of the second book, the story begins to become much more familiar. Let's have a look around and see what we can find first before turning in for the night. Tyrant seems as uninteresting as your journey here. Tyrant seems as uninteresting as your journey there. There are a few drunken brawls, but nothing a hero would get involved in. The day's travel begins to sap the strength from your legs, and you feel that you must rest. You look for a place to spend the night. So essentially a non-choice. And there's that picture of the innkeeper again. We saw him at the beginning of the book also. Before the powers of sleep brush closed your eyelids, you open a cupboard to put your clothes away and see there a heap of human skulls. The innkeeper must be a mass murderer. As you hear footsteps approaching, you shut the cupboard and hide behind the door, seizing your club. And now we're going to get to fight. The innkeeper enters with an axe in his hand. When he sees nobody in the bed, he gasps and looks wildly around. Shouting the battle cry of your people, you attack him, take him by surprise, and inflict one wound. When the battle starts with you, striking first. Procrustes is might 1, protection 10, and his axe is might 5, protection -3. Cornered in the room, you cannot fight. So Procrustes is might 6, protection 7. And we're at 271. Should have probably put that above. Yeah, I'll do that. So let's go back. So we've inflicted one wound, so he is wounded. So we could end this in a single blow, I believe. To 72, not 71. But it got me to the right page. So Altheus will strike first. We have 5 might total. Let's get the campaign window open and go down to the dice roller. 2 dice plus 5. 15. So we rolled a 10. Who said the maths in this game isn't educational? So we land a blow, taking him to seriously wounded, right? And go to section 21, which is 1 digit away from the 221 I erroneously wrote down. Procrustes, now seriously wounded, goes berserk rather than surrender. He only rolls 1 die and abandons his axe, but his combat values change to Might 12, Protection 5. Wow, okay. Meaning he's likely to... Here's the bizarre thing, though. It is still the same fight, so he does get to fight us. So, 2 dice plus 12, he's blatantly going to hit us. Unless, yeah, he rolled a doubled 6, so yeah. So we are now wounded. Oh, wait a minute. I made a mistake. 1 die plus 12. That's a hit. When seriously wounded, a 1 is an automatic miss, a 6 is not an automatic hit. However, we do get to fight. Plus 5. 2 dice plus 5. As long as we don't roll a 2 or a 3, we hit. That takes him from seriously wounded to dead. And as the fight has come to an end, we are restored to full health, presumably sometime between now and morning. There's one in italics, I think. Take 2 shame points for killing a host, even 1 so evil, but have 4 honor points, and you may keep the axe, Might 5, Protection -3. Okay, well let's... That grants us some initial shame. But we now have 11 honor. Let's see. It might be worth taking the axe to try and power through our first few fights. We'll give it a try, okay? We probably don't want to use it too much, though. So now we have a protection of 7. You leave the town. And you know what? I'm thinking this might be a reasonable time to end the episode, because it's pushing 7 in the morning and I've got things I need to do, and I'm not sure how much longer I'd have to record. So yeah, I'm going to leave the adventure here. I hope you've all enjoyed this one, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the very next episode. I'll say goodbye for now though, and look forward to meeting you again when we return to ancient Greece for the Cretan Chronicles. Bye-bye, everyone. Cheerio.